What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Homeless Landlord Podcast. I am your host, Manuk, and this podcast is about me, a traveling landlord trying to get to every country in the world. This is episode number 7, and I'm coming to you from Côte d'Ivoire, otherwise known as the Ivory Coast. And today I want to talk about just overall how this trip has been going. As you can see, I'm keeping a close eye on my brand new microphone stand. I spent so much money on it, I can't even begin to tell you how much I spent. It's the equivalent of $0.00 US. It is a hanger that's going through the handle of a mug and being weighed down by a dish that's sitting on top of a tray, upside down, that's on top of a drawer. So that's what we're going with today. And hopefully the audio is better than it has been in recent episodes. So, Ivory Coast, this is country number 70, a short little milestone along my travels, which I guess, 197 countries total. That leaves 127 countries to go. And I kind of want to talk about just overall how this particular stretch of the trip has been going so far. I have now acclimated and adjusted to the life here in West Africa. It's been nothing short of chaotic, insane, especially if you're an American, because there's just very few Americans overlanding in West Africa. And this overlanding started all the way back in Senegal, and from there we went to the Gambia, Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and now Côte d'Ivoire. But my last trip, I actually flew into Côte d'Ivoire from Monrovia, Liberia, because of a couple of reasons. One, because it's a very long trip from Monrovia to Abidjan, the capital here in Côte d'Ivoire. But I don't, whatever. I don't care about that too much. I'd be willing to take the long trip. I would probably have cut it up in 2 different legs this time instead of doing it all in one day. I don't know if it's even possible in one day. My longest trip so far was 18 hours from Bissau to Conakry, and that was absolutely nuts. If you heard, I think it was in my last episode, that involved 6 hours on a dirt bike, 6 hours in a share taxi, 6 hours on a bus, and it was just insanity. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but I actually kind of like certain parts of it. But yeah, the other reason why I took a plane is because I was in Liberia, or was I in Sierra Leone? Where was I when I was planning? I was in Sierra Leone when I started planning Côte d'Ivoire, but when I got to Liberia and I needed to finalize the visa. Oh, so that's what happened. So I was in Sierra Leone and I did the visa online. But the visa online is only for airplanes. They don't have a land border crossing. So you have to go to the actual embassy to get a land border crossing for Côte d'Ivoire. And in Sierra Leone, they don't have an embassy. And the embassy in Liberia doesn't do visas. So the only way I could have gotten a border crossing was to go backwards into Conakry. That was not happening. So it also has some flight miles left over. So I figured with just the whole like being tired from overlanding, the visa complications, and the fact that it was a very long trip, I decided, you know what, let me just go ahead and book a flight. One way, it was like 400 some bucks. So, not terrible, but also not, again, these are not, I mean, you just compare these to European flights that are like 30 to 50 bucks a pop from one city to another. For 400 bucks, that was mostly with miles. That was all with miles. So we got from Monrovia, Liberia to Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. And then from here, I've been here 3 nights. This is my last day. And from here, we did a 1-day trip to Yamoussoukro, which is home to the world's largest church in the world. Probably one of, if not the most bizarre located places I've ever been to in my life. Because the last place you'd expect to have the world's largest church in the world is in I don't think Ivory Coast is dominant, most is predominantly Muslim, but not by much. It's like 44. I think the numbers are 44% to 40% Catholic, I believe. But still, not in Africa. You would expect it to be Italy or maybe somewhere else in Europe or perhaps even in the U.S. But no, it's right here in Ivory Coast. From the exterior, it's larger than even St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, and the Vatican actually owns this building, I believe. Um, and it's here because in the 1960s there was a lot of turmoil with all of the French colonized African nations, but Ivory Coast remained at peace. So the president wanted to sort of have sort of like a gift back to God and create something amazing and beautiful. So they recruited all these architects. It's just insane. The building is absolutely it's unreal. Not just the design and the architecture, but also the engineering and some of the subtle features of the church and its complex that'll just blow your mind. I'm not going to give away too much. You need to go to Ivory Coast and check it out. The tour guides are awesome. They have them in French and in English, maybe in Spanish. I don't know. Um, they probably have them in So probably in yeah. I can't think of a funky language right now. I was trying to think of that language. There's a language that's supposed to have been a universal language, which is English, but there was a language that was created. There's like 1 million speakers of it. It's a niche. It's like a novelty language, and yeah, there's like 1 million people who speak it in the world. I don't know. I think it starts with the letter E. You can Google it. So yeah, so we're in Ivory Coast now, and I'm planning my trip to Ghana. I'm spending 6 nights there. I will be in Ghana during Christmas. It's my first time. Stop shaking the microphone. Don't do that. Just chill out. Actually, I'm at fault. My lip hit the microphone. I do not want to make out with you. Microphone? Okay, maybe later, but just don't tell anyone. So I'm heading to Ghana next, and 6 nights in Ghana, including Christmas. First time ever away from home during Christmas. Hi, Mom. Love you. And family. And yeah, it's a little sad, but we're on a mission, so we're going to keep going. And also in Ghana, like other African countries, such as Nigeria, Kenya, a few others, they have what's known as the Dedi Festival, which goes for, I believe, 15 days at the end of December, which is a series of Christmas festivities and concerts and events. So I'm going to research some things there. I know prices right now are super high in Ghana for tourism because of the season, the festivities. So yeah, that's where I kind of have to be careful as a budget traveler. I have to be very diligent. I have to do my homework. I don't think I'm going to be doing much tour guides, maybe one or two, but it's also Ghana is you have a lot of areas to explore in Ghana if you're a fan of the outdoors that are far away from the city of Accra. So, excuse me. So yeah, I still have a lot of research to do. My plan is to take buses. I think you could take buses from most of the large cities. And then when you get to the large city, you can either walk to whatever the nature is that you're heading to, or you can take a taxi if it's too far. So most likely I'm going to be doing independent travel for the most part in Ghana, so I can stretch those bills. It's very interesting because lodging is still very cheap, is very inexpensive, and tourism is expensive. So things like car rentals and tours are very expensive. Again, it could be the time of year right now because most tourists who are there are not really going for these things. Most of them are going for the Dedi Festival. So it could be a combination of things as to why the prices are high. So you kind of have to be, you just kind of have to have your, you just have to be fiscally aware, and you have to be smart about how you move your money. So that's part of what I'm researching today. And I do want to explore as much of Ghana as possible. It is my most anticipated country in all of West Africa. It is also, I believe, the most developed country in all of West Africa. But it's still West Africa, so all of the other hecticness and chaos and lifestyle of West Africa that I've experienced so far, I'm expecting to experience there. But I do know that also Ghanaians are very hospitable and very warm and friendly, English speaking, so that's going to be great. And then after that, we're moving on to Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. And Togo and Benin are very small countries. So I plan to be in Nigeria by New Year's. So Christmas in Ghana, New Year's in Nigeria. Okay, at least we're in big markets where there's probably a lot of things going on. And I know there are lots of things going on. Nigeria in Lagos, the largest city in all of Africa, does have some New Year's festivities. So yeah, we're gonna try to approach the next week and a half of the trip as sort of a holiday vacation. I saw my first Christmas tree combined with Christmas music today. There's a mall right down the street from my stay here in Ivory Coast. So I hopped into there and I felt the Christmas spirit. I started singing carols. I walked around to all the businesses and I gave them all greeting cards. I sung do you see what I see? I did none of those things. But yeah, the mall is cool. It was very Christmas decorated. And yeah, Abidjan, by the way, is also very developed for the most part. I mean, it has its neighborhoods. Like when I was taking the bus to Yamoussoukro, it was absolutely the most insane bus station area I've seen so far. And this includes all those crazy trips I've done. The Ajame bus station in Ivory Coast. I never want to see it again. I don't even want to. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to smell it. It was just, all of it was just insanity. Just gigantic buses going through hundreds and thousands of people in crowds and little scooters trying to squeeze through and motorbikes and like everything is almost an accident or an accident. Like all of it, and everyone's just angry at each other because they just can't get by and. It's just pure. People are like, as soon as you get into the neighborhood, everybody wants to talk to you to see where you're going so they can. It's madness. I hope. I mean, I know that for the most part, most of the hecticness of overlanding is behind me because like the share taxis are done for a while. I can get from Accra to, I'm sorry, from Abidjan to Accra, capital of Ghana, by bus, which is what I'm doing tomorrow. It's a 13-hour bus. It's going to be long. There will be delays. However, the bus is comfortable from what I've been told. It's air conditioned. I already purchased my. I wanted to go today, but the bus was full. So I'm now in that area where okay, there's more tourism. It's that time of year. I can't just show up at the bus station and buy a ticket. So yeah, so I can get to Accra pretty simply, and then from there to the next three countries are all very short rides. I believe 3 hours apiece. So to get from Ghana to Togo, and Togo to Benin, Benin to Nigeria, just look at a map and you'll know what I'm talking about. So so yeah, that's where I am now. Um, yeah, I guess I didn't talk much about Liberia. Liberia is interesting because it is the only. So it wasn't colonized by America, but America, the U.S. did help in its independence in 1964. The U.S. and Liberia do have a very strong relationship, and therefore Liberia is like a mini America in some ways. It's still a very underdeveloped country, but for example, they have their national flag is very similar to the U.S. flag, with a star and stripes. Um, their capital city, Monroeville, was named after our U.S. president James Monroe. I don't know what number president he was. You can Google that. You have Google. Um, and they use the U.S. dollar side by side with the Liberian dollar. I think as a result, all the prices in Liberia are very similar to prices in the U.S. Pretty expensive for food, places to stay. Taxis are still very, very cheap, but I think the reason that is because they use the U.S. dollar, and there are a lot of Liberians that live in the U.S. that have migrated to the U.S. and a lot of them send money back home, so it's caused a hyperinflation for most products in Liberia. I don't think that's affected the Liberian dollar too much. I think it's all relative, but I did notice that when I was paying in Liberian dollar and I did the conversion on my phone, it was a little bit cheaper than if I was paying in US dollars. So if you are going to Liberia and you can get a conversion into Liberian money, do that. I think it's going to be a little bit less expensive than the US dollar. But either way, expect to spend a little bit more than you would in the rest of West Africa. And another way they're similar to the U.S. is that they use the imperial system. Now, I don't know how much. I think that might have changed in recent years, but the imperial system is the opposite of the metric system. And the U.S. and Liberia are two of only three countries in the world that use it. The other one being Myanmar, which is an Asian country, and I don't know why they use it yet at this point in my life. Google it. I should have. Maybe I'll. I'm not going to Google it, but um, excuse me. I forgot my water. I'm gonna go grab it. No, I'm not. So Liberia uses, I think so. I think in the recent years that has actually changed. I think Liberia is starting to migrate to the metric system. So the key differences in the metric and the imperial system is um, so speed, like kilometers versus miles, weight, gallons versus liters. Gas weight. Well, gas size is gallons versus liquid weight. Yeah. Let's start that one over. So liquid weight, gallons versus liters, and weight in terms of kilos versus pounds. I don't think temperature is. I don't think they use Fahrenheit, but again, they've always used the imperial system because the U.S. has. But again, I think they're migrating now. So, um, yeah, other similarities like there are some American brands. The buildings they kind of look Americanized, like the signs that they use, and yeah, it's it's interesting. There isn't a ton to do in Monrovia. I did go out for a night. The nightlife there is amazing. I also went out in Sierra Leone. The nightlife there is also amazing. I've kind of taken a break from that here in Ivory Coast, um, from partying because I know Ghana is going to be insane. So I'm trying to let my body rest a little bit. Go to the gym, do some laundry. Yeah, going to the gym is the perfect way to let your body rest. By the way, this just in. Um, Breaking news. No, that's enough. So sorry about that. I should have. Yeah. So I had nothing to add there. Yeah. So that's where we are right now. We are at 70, approaching 71, and I'm now 7 weeks into this stretch of my trip since I started to become a full-time traveler. Starting from Morocco, I'm 14 countries in. By the time I reach Nigeria, wait, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm 14 in yet. No, no, I'm 11 or 12. By the time I did the math ahead of time. By the time I reach Nigeria, I will have been to 15 countries on this trip in 8 weeks. That puts me at an average of 3.5 countries. I'm sorry, 3.5 days per country, which is the exact amount I had in mind. Well, yeah, right around the exact amount I had in mind. Anywhere from 2 to 5 days per country based on its size, based on how much I can do, I want to do. In countries like Liberia, Bissau, spending less time, and in countries like Morocco, Sierra Leone, Ghana, spending more time. And I'm moving along swimmingly. The budget, let's talk about the budget because before I left, I had a goal in mind of approximately $500 US per country overall. We're definitely surpassing that by a little bit, maybe by like $150 per country average. Some of that is because of visas, and some of that is for unexpected costs, which I expected unexpected costs. Unexpected costs meaning, like for example, like nightlife, like going out for a night or two and spending like 100 extra bucks than I would have, which is great. But yeah, and then yeah, I think a lot of it, the visa, and then sometimes the transport. So sometimes taxis, sometimes having to go somewhere additional for a little bit more time. Um, Sometimes even not so much the food. Food has been right where food and lodging actually have kind of been right on par with what I anticipated. Probably averaging around $20 to $30 per night in private places, fully private, even private bathrooms in most. Like the place here, I have an amazing room, air conditioning. I've had no power outages. I had one water outage, water disruption, for a few hours. Private bathroom, it's great. This is exactly like, I mean, it's I think it costs like $20 a night US in Ivory Coast in a nice neighborhood called Kokodi. So lodging has been run on par. Food has been run on par. Food, I've been eating a mixture of local foods and just like coffee and breakfast and snacks, and I think overall I'm doing okay there. My stomach did bother me a little bit in Senegal when I was first adjusting to the food out here, but it wasn't even that bad. It was very, and honestly, I think the only reason that even happened is this. This is going to sound silly, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate. I think the reason that happened is because I was doing some ab work. I was doing an ab workout that day, and I was doing the Russian twist, right? But yeah, why would that should be a Senegalese twist if you're doing it in Senegal? But then there's probably like an African way to do it. I don't know. But I was doing the twists on the ab workout. So, for me, historically, that's always kind of caused my stomach, TMI. But So it wasn't even only the food that caused my stomach to disagree with the food. It was me encouraging it further with some core workouts. So, but anyway, so other than that part of the trip, the food has mostly been okay. I'm drinking only bottled water, which is no different than anywhere else I go in the world, and it's not even any different from home. I drink either bottled water or filtered water. I'm pretty sure most people are drinking that. I know for a fact most people in the U.S. are not drinking tap water. So water's been fine. Access to water has luckily been fine. Um, access to the things I need for the most part have been pretty smooth. If most of the complications have come from overland travel, which is what I expected. Which is also why it hasn't. It's also why I've kind of been okay with the crazy travels. Is because look, I'm traveling by road across West Africa. If you're not expecting the worst to happen, you probably got dropped as a baby, and your head probably went directly into the sewer, and you probably had to be fished out of the sewer by professionals, and you probably had to be baptized immediately because it's insane. And you, yeah, I took 2 months of mental preparation, and me telling myself, bro, it's gonna not be smooth sailing at all, and yeah, so I think that has helped. And I think now that I've gone through the worst stretch of it, I really truly do think I can get through almost any method of travel. Now, obviously, there's still many parts of Africa, many parts of the world that are still very challenging, like Central Africa. I haven't really gone interior into Africa, which is probably, it might even be trickier than the coastal West Africa because now we're talking the Sahelian region, which is slightly more dangerous. There's less tourism. These countries are much bigger. They're much more in the desert. And traveling between country to country is also much further. So I'm going to save that part of Africa for another time because I'm just going down the coast. Originally, my plan was to kind of try to get into like Mali, Burkina Faso. I'm kind of holding off on that part right now because in the future, I can always group that in with the rest of North Africa, like Libya, Egypt. So for right now, we're just going along the coast. We're still on pace to get to Nigeria at the time frame that I expected by New Year's. It's pretty astonishing how that's happening. And at that point, I'm still undecided what to do. And I really hope to figure this out in Ghana because I'm a couple weeks away. And I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I don't know if I'm going to continue down the west coast of Africa, which the next country there would be Cameroon, and then Equatorial Guinea, Gabon. It would include a flight to Sao Tome. And then just all the way down through both Congos, and then I think it's Angola, Namibia, and then South. So if I continue forward, option number one, continuing down the west coast of Africa, and if I do that, then my next goal would be let's get to South Africa and figure it out there. So that would be another maybe 12 or 13 countries or so, depending on if I go a little bit into the interior. It just depends on the exact path I take, but that would get me to South Africa. That would get me to approximately 85 countries. Option number two would be to fly to a different continent and switch things up a little bit, take a break from Africa. And option number three would be to fly back home for a little bit, handle business. Now, I know I set out to do this trip as a full-time traveler and get to as many countries as possible. That is still the goal. By me taking a break, going back to the U.S., it's for a couple of reasons. One, it's to check up on things in real estate, and two, it's to do some other business-oriented things. It's not to give up on this goal. It's not because I'm tired or exhausted, although I am tired, I'm exhausted, but I've also adjusted to me being tired. It's now just part of my day. Like tomorrow morning I have to wake up at 5. I'm probably not going to sleep tonight until midnight. Whatever. It is what it is. You just got to roll with the punches. I'm used to it. So one of three things are going to happen in Nigeria. I am hoping that I just will continue the trip down the west coast of Africa. Because I'm already here, it makes the most financial sense. I'm already adjusted to the life here, so I don't have to readjust. I know it's only going to keep it all. By the way, it's also very hot. And I'm about 5 years ago, my mind, my body just changed its mind about loving the heat. I stopped loving the heat. I started liking the cold. Now I hate the heat. So I'm in heat every day. It's really hot out. It's like 96 to 98 degrees every day, burning hot, dry heat for the most part. I saw like half a day of not even half a day. I saw like 3 hours of precipitation here in Ivory Coast a few days ago. But otherwise, it's very hot. And as you get closer to the equator, it's going to get hotter, right? Equatorial Guinea. So the heat adjustment's another big one. But that one, I guess I've adjusted, sort of. Not really, because it still sucks, but I can't really complain about that. It's Africa. Like, what am I expecting? There are no glaciers in Africa, no polar bears. Yeah, no penguins. But maybe in the zoos. Probably not. How would that, I'm curious now. Do they have any penguins? Somebody Google that and message me. Do they have penguins in Africa? Zoos. Anyway. So, and then also I would love to see a safari, which most of the safaris are in the South and I think East Africa. So, yeah, there are a number of reasons why I would love to continue this trip down the coast past Nigeria. So, we will see. I will keep you guys updated. Please continue to follow along. Yeah, I feel like there might be one other thing I want to touch on, but maybe not. I think I covered everything for the most part. Yeah, so excited about my trip to Ghana. If you are listening to this now, I'm pretty sure I'm uploading this immediately, which today is December 19th, 2024. So if you did listen to this today or very recently, you can check out my Instagram, Nukeyhove, Nukeyhov, as I approach and enter Ghana. And that's all I got for now. Thanks a lot for listening. Please give me a rating of 5 stars if you liked it, and share it with your friends, and I'll catch you on the next episode.